Kia ora, hello, and welcome to Anyway, the podcast where I unpack the chaos of reality TV. I am your host, Natalie McMurray, coming to you from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Today, we're invited to a James Bond party. But what we find ourselves at is more of a shmame schmond party. Let's dive back into the valley with episode 11. We open with Janet and Lala visiting Brittany post-surgery. Janet has brought Brittany a bag of spaghetti because why the fuck not? This program never ceases to produce scenes that are completely jarring to one's eye. Apparently, she has no containers, which seems wild to me. I'm accumulating containers faster than I can get rid of them. I wish I wasn't. There's enough plastic in the world. Anyway, Brittany is talking about her balls again, and Lala's face is exactly how I feel. She's gonna vomit. I'm gonna vomit. Please tuck the balls in and never ever bring them out again, Brittany. They discuss Brandon and his lack of commitment to looking after Brittany. She says, I don't like to make things about me, but I've just had surgery and I'm only asking for 3 days, which is not asking for much. We then see Jesse and Lacey strolling through a food market. They meet Kristen and Luke at a pickle place. Kristen is obsessed with pickles. I like a good pickle, but I don't know about it being used as a base for other food, like what you would do with bread or crackers. I feel like there needs to be another element there. Perhaps we put the stuff on the pickle and then the pickle on bread. But I guess nobody eats carbs in LA. I don't know. Kristen is head of the pickle propaganda train. Lacey hates pickles. She wants nothing to do with them. Not even if they're handpicked by God himself. Jesse and Luke are eating pickles and want to touch tips. Jesse says, just a tip though, followed by, boys will be boys. An expression which makes me sick to my fucking stomach. Also, everyone thinks you're a misogynist when you say shit like that, Jesse. Back to Lala, Brittany, and Janet. Brittany says neither Danny or Nia have reached out to her in person after her surgery, but that they have been commenting on her social posts, which I guess is weird if they are indeed friends. Also, Nia didn't add Janet to the meal train for Brittany and Cruz. I don't want to be an asshole to Janet because I'm actually enjoying her this season, but she did just bring Brittany a bag of spaghetti. So perhaps Nia was correct to leave her off. I'm sure the spaghetti tastes great, but all that sauce in a bag? It's a recipe for disaster. Excuse the pun. It reminds me when you go to certain places in Southeast Asia and they give you curry in a bag when you get takeaways. I'm not 100% sure what the reasoning is, whether it's a supply issue for containers like what Janet has. My point is, liquid in bags, it's just a lot to deal with physically for me. Brittany wonders whether she should say something to Nia and Danny, but she doesn't want shit to go south given what happened last year when she tried to confront Nia about the lack of transparency from their life. Janet wants Nia to let her rage out, because a pissed off Nia turns her on a little. Over at the pickle stand, Jesse, the man who wants to stop talking about Danny's drinking, brings up Danny's drinking yet again. Not only does he bring it up, but when Lacey defends Danny, Jesse says, yeah, but you haven't seen Dark Side Danny yet. Jesse? It's giving very flip-flop. Is he trying to produce here? What's the motive? I don't get it. Lacey talks about how she's seen the dark side to other people drunk. She says that Brittany and Michelle screaming fuck you at her is worse than Danny being drunk and belligerent. That could possibly be true if we didn't know the details of that belligerency. But we do. He touched both Jasmine and Melissa inappropriately. He grabbed Jasmine's thigh and told her to get Daddy a drink. He grabbed Melissa's ass. He was also extremely disrespectful and aggressive towards his wife and Lala while drunk recently. To me, these actions are way worse than your boyfriend's ex screaming fuck you at you, especially when you were sending cease and desists to her and her friends. Let's get things into perspective here, please. Jesse tries to bring up his conspiracy theory about Brittany being on board with Jax to take down Danny. Kristen ain't buying it. Thank God she has more gumption to stick up for Brittany than Schwartz did. Unfortunately, she also has a lot of gumption towards backing Danny and Nia. We move over to Zack and Jasmine having drinks. Jasmine is stressed out from wedding planning. She says Melissa is related to half of New Jersey, and this wedding is going to be expensive as fuck, which sounds like my worst nightmare. My husband and I had 8 people at our wedding, And while I love all of those people very much, and I'm very happy that they were there, even that was too much for me. Jasmine asks Zack if he'll be part of the wedding. He wants to know if that means being her maid of honor. Nope, she ain't having one. I feel like she's enlisting him to help with her admin. I'm not quite sure what she's asking. Anyway, they're discussing where they want to settle down, kids, marriage, and all of that. And Zack brings up the news that has come out lately. We see that anyone from the US who wants to marry a foreigner and bring them to the US must pay $100,000 with any new H-1B visa petition. I guess we can say goodbye to 90-Day Fiancé being a thing then. Perhaps that's for the best, given the fact that one of the people on the show was the subject of Netflix's worst ex ever episodes. Did anyone watch that? That shit is fucking crazy. He beat the crap out of his ex-wife before he was on 90-Day Fiancé. They still let him be a part of it. What the fuck, TLC? I guess they have pretty much always been in the business of putting people's lives at risk, though, right? The Learning Channel my ass. Although 90 Day Fiancé has so many spin-off shows, it's not even funny. They'll probably just pivot to doing more 90 Day Fiancé the other way, where the people from the US go to the other people's country, which is more interesting when I think about it. Anyway, back to Zack and Jasmine. Zack gets emotional and wants to know how they're going to make things work unless they get married. Jasmine doesn't want him to be discouraged. Danny and Zack then meet at a gift store to get something for Nia for her and Danny's 10-year wedding anniversary. Zack is like, this store is cute and all, but where are the diamonds? Danny talks about the fact that he's getting a vasectomy in a week. Nia is going to be away at the time, and she's taking her mother, who apparently is supposed to be taking care of Danny. It's really weird to me. I can't really imagine my mom looking after my husband, but I don't know, whatever. Anyway, he's worried about taking care of 3 kids while in recovery. I don't know how bad a vasectomy recovery is, but I assume for Danny, it will be the absolute worst. Because he's the type of person to be over the top about everything. Zack talks about how he wants to organize a trip for all the birthdays, including his, coming up. They then discuss Schwartz's upcoming party. Danny wants to know if there will be food. Zack is unsure regarding the food. He says, I think it's going to be more of an alcoholic party. Which is a poor choice of words, given that's what people have been saying about Danny. Anyway, Zack is all, oh, but you're not drinking much though, right? Because you didn't drink at my party. Danny looks straight in Zack's face and says, no, I didn't. Danny, why the fuck are you lying about this? You know what people are already thinking. You know that there was a camera filming you. You know that this will be brought up at the reunion. There's no helping this man, truly. Over at Schwartz's place, he's spritzing the forest that lives inside his townhouse. Plants galore, which apparently his dogs have been pissing all over. I can't even imagine how this man's house smells. Lala comes over and they head up to the rooftop, which I guess is where he's having the party. He says it looks a little fratty, and honestly, it truly does. It's pretty messy. He tells us the theme is 007. I'm not really sure how he's going to make this look suave as fuck. Schwartz agrees. He basically says he couldn't be further from James Bond if he tried. He then asks Lala if she wants to jump over the fence on the rooftop and take a tour of Jax's roof, because Jax lives right beside him. She's like, no. No thank you. First of all, I wouldn't be jumping over anything on a roof. Second of all, nobody wants to go anywhere near that demon's house. Except for you, Schwartz, since you live right next door. Schwartz says he understands that it might be a little awkward for Brittany to come to the party, because he shares a wall with Jax. But thankfully, he will be out of town. Schwartz talks to Lala about how him, Danny, and Jesse went to the bar formerly known as Jax's for dinner and drinks. Lala says, wow, look at you guys, opening bars and making them go out of business. They both laugh, but the way that Schwartz is forcing such a hard laugh out makes me think that he's doing that because if he doesn't, he'll cry. That's pretty on brand. They talk about Danny's drinking, and apparently Danny told Jesse and Schwartz that after last year, he and Nia had a conversation about being more inconspicuous with Danny's drinking. Lala is sketched the fuck out by this. She wants to know how Nia telling Danny to hide his drinking better is helping. Something we'd all like to know. We then see Lala and Janet coming over to Brittany's place to get ready for the party. She tells them that her and Brandon got into a fight the other day. Apparently, Brandon has been seeing and or FaceTiming another girl. She mentions that he has asked her for money a bunch of times. Lala tells us in a confessional that Brittany needs to work on herself more before moving on to somebody else because Jax did such a number on her self-esteem and self-worth that she's attracting the wrong type of men. Over at Schwartz's place, he's set up for the party, and just when I'm thinking, wow, 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 this looks fucking terrible, he comes into the kitchen and says, okay, it looks like shit. And then, oh my God, it looks like trash, which made me laugh out loud. A pretty rare occurrence while watching The Valley. I feel like back in the scene with Lala, he had talked about how he had spent like $500 on decoration. Maybe I'm not remembering that figure correctly because the decorations he has look cheap as shit. He has a tiny roulette wheel, a giant novelty deck of playing cards, which are bigger than the roulette, and a felt craps table thing, which doesn't sit flat, and like random gold bead necklaces all over the table. When Lala told him to outsource shit, he really should have taken her advice. Everyone is arriving looking way too dressed up for this party. Jason hobbles up the stairs on his crutches, and then 5 minutes later hobbles back down them again to leave. Jesse and Lacey's version of a 007 party is completely different to what they're walking into. I guess they don't know Schwartz that well. Or at least Lacey doesn't, because she's delusional if she thinks she's getting valet parking, a bartender making specialty cocktails, and waitstaff passing around hors d'oeuvres. Later we see that Michelle has turned a wedding ring into a necklace, which is beautiful. She says that she doesn't want Jesse to know about the necklace, but also says Jesse notices everything. You're at the same party. Of course he's going to see it. Zack announces the birthday trip to Mexico to everyone. He thinks these people need Sun and Jesus. Probably most people do. We see Danny and Nia arrive, and Schwartz immediately makes a cocktail for Danny. Lala tells us that Schwartz has always been a drunken fuckboy apologist, which is facts. With Tom Sandoval, Jax Taylor, Kyle Cook, West Wilson, James Kennedy, and now Danny Boko. Boko? Boko? I'm not sure how you say that last name. Brittany arrives wearing a novelty sweatshirt that has a printed tuxedo on the front, which is way more appropriate and on brand for this party than what anyone else is wearing. Apparently, she got the memo. Brittany wants Schwartz to know how great of a friend she is for being at this party. Because she's just been through surgery, she's in intense pain, and now she's being subjected to being in close proximity to her toxic ex-husband's house. All I can think about is how Schwartz didn't stick up for Brittany at that dinner with Danny and Jesse. Jesse, being the eagle-eyed motherfucker that he is, notices Michelle's necklace. He apparently wanted to use the money to make a trust for Isabella's college funds. But given this man clearly has money issues, I doubt that's what he would have spent the money on. She was married to your ass for 5 years. She deserves the fucking diamond necklace. Brittany is on her third flight of stairs for the night, up to the rooftop. Half of the footage from this party is taking place in staircases. She gets up there just to be confronted by a bunch of Hooters furniture that I guess Jack stole from her. Brittany tells the people that her and Brandon have called it quits. Zack is biting his tongue in front of Brittany, but not in his confessional. He's all, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. We see Nia apologizing to Brittany about the shit show that the meal train was. Apparently, she completely fucked it up. Lala wants to know why Janet wasn't included. Nia is all, we're not friends, but somebody else could have invited her to the chat. And I'm over here just having visions of spaghetti in the bag again. Jasmine, Danny, and Kristen are downstairs also talking about the meal train. Jasmine says, as good Christian people, you should do the right thing when it comes to a fucking meal train. Danny and Kristen start losing their shit about this comment. I'm 100% on Jasmine's side with this. You add Janet in so there's more food for Brittany and Cruz. You don't have to be friends with her. The fact that these people are getting so heated about a meal train for a woman who had liposuction and a breast reduction and is walking around with bloody ball sacks hanging in her pants is completely insane and hilarious. They've basically resolved the issue on the rooftop, but Kristen storms upstairs to protect Nia, I guess, and starts the whole thing off again. Kristen says they all want the pit bull until the pit bull is against them. I'd like to point out that Lala, the person who Kristen is trying to argue with, doesn't need a fucking pit bull, Kristen. Anyway, apparently Janet is a trigger word for these people. So Janet is all, peace out. She goes to the kitchen to say goodbye to Schwartz. Michelle follows and says, I love you and I don't want you to always leave. Janet is sick of being treated lesser than. And apparently Luke has now appeared out of nowhere and starts sticking up for Danny and Nia. He says they're still hurt from last year. Luke is getting heated and wanking on about how Janet hasn't apologized to Danny for the allegations that she made about him. He says you didn't even see those things happen, which I guess is true, but she believes her friend who told her that these things did in fact happen. That's what being a good friend actually is. I can see that Janet is trying to keep her cool, but she ends up yelling, did you see what Charles Manson did to know that he's a psychopath? I understand her point, but this is definitely not helping her case. Because now people are going to be all, oh, now you're comparing Danny to Charles Manson. And before I can even finish that thought, that's exactly what Luke does. He's all, so you think Danny's a psychopath? Luke is an idiot who doesn't understand hyperbole. We then see Jesse and Michelle having a conversation on the rooftop. He wants to interrogate her on why she cried at the coffee shop divorce conversation. Because she said she was sad at the time, but told Lala that she was crying from relief. She basically says, I'm crying for both those reasons, dummy. You treated me like absolute shit, and we were in a toxic relationship. She has to remind him that they're not getting a divorce because their marriage was all sunshine and lollipops. Michelle starts crying again and is all, I just want to leave. Yikes. I feel terrible for her that she has to deal with this man. She's trying to leave and then gets interrogated for a second time by Tom Schwartz, demanding to know if she's crying. He walks her out and she explains that it's hard for her to see Jesse be affectionate with Lacey because she wanted him to be like that with her, but he never was. Woof. Anyway, that's it for this week. Enjoy your weekend. Thanks for listening. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya.